As I watched the footage from the security cameras, my hands trembled. There was my wife in the dark corner of the club, and she wasn't alone. Getting this footage came at a high price, and the cost of the truth turned out to be far greater than I had ever imagined. That was a cursed Christmas. The party marked the beginning of the end. I had a feeling something was going to happen. My gut was telling me something was up. I watched Linda meticulously pick out her dress, standing in front of the mirror for what felt like hours. She was also carefully applying her makeup and testing new perfume like she was preparing for more than just a casual party with colleagues. It was just a casual party with colleagues, but I sensed something was going to happen. Linda worked as an account manager at a financial company, and just before Christmas, her company rented out a nightclub for their annual holiday party. It seemed innocent enough, a chance for the team to blow off some steam before the holiday break. I had no reason to suspect anything. We had a solid marriage, or so I thought. I mean, I didn't know many of the people she worked with, but that never seemed like a big deal. Linda always kept her professional life separate. That night, I stayed home with our daughter as usual. We put up the Christmas tree, played some board games, and later, after I tucked her into bed, I settled down with a book. Everything seemed normal until it got late and Linda still hadn't come home. Around midnight, I gave her a call just to check. The music was blasting in the background and I could barely hear her. She said the party was still going and she'd be home later. Her tone was casual, but there was something about the way she spoke that didn't sit right with me. There was a hesitation and distance when she finally walked through the door the next evening. Everything about her was off. Her hair was a mess and her clothes were dirty. She looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept in days. I asked her where she'd been. She said she'd been drinking too much and crashing at a colleague's place. No details, no plausible explanation. Just a quick apology followed by an awkward silence. My gut was screaming, but I didn't push. I wanted to believe her and trust that this was just a bad night that got out of hand. When Linda quickly changed her clothes and went straight to the shower, something about the way she did it caught my attention. I felt a strange pull and urge to check. I don't know why. Maybe it was. My gut was telling me something was wrong, so after she closed the bathroom door, I went over and checked out the clothes she'd thrown away. Her dress was a nice black number, along with her bra, but her panties were missing. I looked through the clothes carefully, but there was nothing. My heart started racing. It was just a small thing, but it felt like a big red flag to me. Why would she come home with no panties? Something was definitely off when Linda came out of the bathroom, her hair wrapped in a towel, looking as calm as ever. I decided to ask her a few questions to try to get to the bottom of it. "How was the party?" I asked, keeping my tone casual. Although my mind was racing, she barely glanced at me as she responded, "It was fine. You know how these things are. A lot of drinking, silly games, some contests. I just got carried away." Sandra and I went to her place to sleep it off. She lives closer to the club. Her voice was too smooth. The way she said it made me feel even more uneasy. My instincts were right. She wasn't telling me everything, but I didn't press her. If I confronted her now, she'd just shut down and I wouldn't get anywhere. I needed a different approach. The name of the nightclub lingered in my mind. From our quick chat, I decided to go there myself the next day. I took a day off work as a real estate agent, which gave me some flexibility, so it wasn't too difficult to slip away without Linda noticing. I drove down to the club, my mind racing with different scenarios of what might have happened that night. When I arrived, I parked and approached the building. I introduced myself as a real estate specialist and quickly made up a story about being interested in the property for a potential buyer. It wasn't the smoothest lie, but it worked. The administrator gave me The tour was polite but a bit confused. That's when I noticed something. There were cameras, security cameras, positioned all around the interior. My heart raced. If those cameras had been running the night of the party, there might be footage that could confirm my suspicions. But how was I going to after the tour? I thought about how I could get my hands on the footage. I went back to the car park and stood there, lost in thought. I bumped into someone and apologized, but the man was clearly annoyed. I was about to apologize when I froze. I knew that voice. Looking up, I realized I had run into Tommy, a guy I hadn't seen since college. "Tommy, it's me, Josh. Remember?" I called out, trying to mask my shock with enthusiasm. Tommy blinked, his annoyed expression softening into surprise. "It's been about 10 or 12 years since we last met. I was surprised to see you here. I didn't expect you to be working at this club." I asked, trying to sound casual. Yeah, I'm one of the managers here. I didn't think I'd be doing this after college, but it pays the bills. Bills, Tommy said, shrugging. This could be my in. Hey, you want to grab a coffee? There's a place just across the street, I suggested, trying to hide the urgency in my voice. He checked his watch. I've got a break in half an hour. Meet you over there? Perfect. I nodded, forcing a smile. I walked over to the cafe, my pulse racing. This could be the moment I've been waiting for. I just had to play it right as I sat down with my coffee, waiting for Tommy. I couldn't help but feel the weight of what I was about to uncover. I had to stay focused before I found out what happened next. If you're interested in seeing what happens next, please subscribe to the channel. Your subscription helps me too. After a while, Tommy finally walked into the cafe. He looked a bit worn down, like the years since college had taken their toll. We exchanged a few pleasantries, catching up on where life had taken us. It turned out that Tommy wasn't doing so well after his mom got sick. He had to take on a lot of medical bills, which pretty much drained his savings. He'd lost a lot of his savings and had bounced around a few jobs before landing here at the club. As he explained, his role wasn't exactly glamorous. I'm a manager, but not like the big kind, he said with a tired laugh. I handle the staff that takes care of cleaning and technical maintenance. You know, making sure the place stays in order, which isn't exactly the career I thought I'd have. Hearing that made me feel even worse for him. Tommy was a talented guy back in the day, full of potential. Now he was stuck managing a crew that handled the club's dirty work with no real room to grow. He was doing what he had to in order to get by, but it wasn't where he belonged. You know, you're always the smart one in college, I said, trying to remind him of his potential. I figure you'd be running your own business by now. Tommy gave a bitter laugh. Yeah, well, life has a funny way of putting you in a box. I'm just trying to keep my head above water. I nodded, understanding, but my mind wasn't really on small talk. I had something bigger I needed from him. After listening to his story for a while, I decided it was time to get to the point. Listen, Tommy, I didn't just come here to catch up. I need your help with something. I lowered my voice. It's about that night at the Christmas party. Linda was there. My wife and I think she wasn't completely honest about what happened. Tommy raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? I think she might have cheated on me. I admitted, feeling a knot tighten in my stomach. Just saying, it's time to come clean. I need to see the footage from that night, the security cameras. I need to know for sure. Tommy immediately tensed up. Whoa, man, I don't know about that. First off, it wasn't even my shift. And second, stealing the footage is serious. If I get caught, I'm done. I can't afford to lose this job. His eyes were wide with concern. Tommy, you know I trust you. I know what I'm asking is huge, but I'm desperate. I can't let this go without knowing the truth. You know me. I'm not the kind of guy who does this kind of thing, but this is my marriage. I just need to see what happened. If I'm wrong, fine, but if I'm right, I can't live like this, doubting her every move. Tommy leaned back, looking uncomfortable. Josh, I get it. You're asking me to risk everything. You know how strict they are about the stuff. I could lose my job. I wasn't sure what to say next, but then an idea came to me. What if I make it worth your while? He frowned, clearly confused. What do you mean? I pulled out my wallet and slowly laid $500 in cash on the table. Tommy's eyes widened and he looked from the cash to me, hesitating. I'm not asking you to do it for free. I know it's risky. This is just for your trouble, and if you can get me, I'll give you another $700 for that footage, I said quietly, leaning forward. I'm not just talking about money. I know people. You're better than this place. Tommy, you don't need to be stuck here managing the cleaning crew. I've got connections in real estate, tech, and finance. I can help you find something better. He didn't have to be stuck in this rut, Tommy thought. He rubbed his face, clearly conflicted. He could see the gears turning in his head. The money would help him, and the thought of a better job probably felt like a lifeline, but he could also see the fear. He didn't want to get caught. He didn't want to risk his only income. Josh, I don't know. I really don't know if I get caught. He sighed. I can't afford to lose my job. I've got my mom depending on me. I get it. I do, I said, keeping my voice low but firm. I swear I'll make sure you don't get caught, and I'll help you get out of this dead-end situation. This could be a new start for you. For a long moment, Tommy sat there staring at the cash, torn between loyalty to his job and the potential of a way out. Finally, he nodded, but it was clear he was reluctant. "All right, I'll do it," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Josh, if anything goes wrong, I'm walking away. You understand?" I felt a wave of relief wash over me. "I promise you, nothing will go wrong. When this is done, I'll help you find something better. You've got my word." We finished our coffee, and Tommy told me he'd meet a few people. We agreed to meet up again in a few days to figure out how to access the footage without raising suspicion. We exchanged numbers, and I promised to transfer the rest of the cash when he had the recordings in hand. As we parted ways outside the cafe, I watched him walk back toward the club, feeling a mixture of guilt and hope. I knew I was asking a lot of him, but I also knew this was the only way to get the truth. I had to wait for Tommy to come through with the results, but in the meantime I decided to help him with his job search. I felt bad that we had lost touch after college, especially knowing what a tough spot he was in. It wasn't just about getting that footage anymore, it was about helping a good guy find his way out. I got a dead-end job, so I made a few calls to people I knew in different industries, reaching out to the ones I trusted. I was relieved to get some solid leads and help Tommy start fresh. A few days passed, and life continued as usual. Linda acted like nothing was wrong, calm and collected. She went about her days normally, smiling, laughing, and showing no signs that I followed her lead, keeping my suspicions to myself. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was brewing beneath the surface. Then one afternoon, a message from Tommy came through on my phone. He wanted to meet and had something for me. We agreed on a different cafe this time, one a little further out where we wouldn't be noticed. When I got there he was, already seated, looking anxious but excited as I sat down. He leaned in, lowering his voice as if we were sharing some kind of secret. He said, "Slide the drive across the table." I did, and he said, "Everything's on there." He told me to download the recordings from the entire night of the party. I took the drive, feeling a strange mix of relief and dread. "What did you find?" I asked. My heart was beating a little faster. "It's not perfect," Tommy said, fidgeting slightly. "There are some spots in the club where the cameras don't have full coverage. Places people could slip into if they wanted to stay out of sight. But I got everything that was on the cameras." His nervousness was obvious. "I don't think anyone's noticed yet, but I'm worried. If they do, it could." I got it. I understood his concern. This wasn't just a small favor, it was a big risk for him. I pulled out the rest of the cash I owed him, but he hesitated, not reaching for it. "I really don't want to take this, Josh." His voice was soft. "I'm only doing this because, well, you know my situation. Otherwise I wouldn't have. Tommy, you earned this." I pushed, insisting. "Take the money and listen. You don't have to be scared. Quit that place. I made a few calls and lined up some meetings for you. You've got options. You don't need to keep working at that club." His eyes lit up, and the worry in them faded just a little. "You really did that?" He asked. "Yeah, I've got some people who are ready to talk to you about good positions. It's a fresh start." Tommy finally took the money and put it in his jacket pocket. "Thanks, Josh. I don't know what to say. Just do what you need to do." I decided to wait before watching the footage. I needed time to prepare myself for whatever I might see the next day. I waited for Linda to leave the house. She had a few errands to run, which gave me the perfect window to finally face the truth. Once she was gone, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open and the flash drive in my hand. My palms were sweating as I connected the drive to a USB port for a moment, just staring at the screen, my heart racing. Then I took a deep breath and clicked play. The footage began showing the party in full swing, the music was loud, the lights were flashing, and everyone seemed to be having a great time. People were dancing, laughing, and drinking. I could see Linda looking stunning in that dress, chatting with her colleagues and smiling, and she was joining in with the fun. At first everything seemed normal as I watched the footage, but then the party started to take a turn that made my stomach churn. What began as harmless dancing and drinking quickly escalated into something far more indecent. I couldn't believe my eyes. The people Linda worked with, professionals mind you, were behaving like they were reenacting some wild scene from The Wolf of Wall Street. It was like the atmosphere in the scene from The Wolf of Wall Street, but without any illegal activity. It was as if the alcohol had stripped away all their inhibitions. The corporate party quickly turned into something else entirely. The contest started getting dirty, with people laughing and shouting as if they'd forgotten they were supposed to be cooperative. The camera caught glimpses of women taking shots off each other's bodies, and men egging each other on to do things I won't even repeat. Then through the crowd, I saw Linda, my Linda. She wasn't just dancing anymore, she was completely letting loose, swaying wildly with a drink in one hand, hugging men and women alike like there were no boundaries or lines she wasn't willing to cross. My pulse quickened as I leaned closer to the screen. I watched her laugh and throw her arms around some guy I didn't recognize. They pulled him in close and started moving toward the back of the club, where the camera coverage wasn't as clear. Before they reached that blind spot, I saw enough to know that things were getting out of hand. Linda was kissing him, not just a peck on the cheek, but full-on kissing him like they were alone and not surrounded by a room full of people. His hands were all over her, in ways that made me cringe. I couldn't breathe. This wasn't just some innocent party flirtation. I was shocked when I saw another man join them. Linda laughed and hugged him too, wrapping her arms around his neck as if it was all just a game to her. The three of them were tangled together in a mess of limbs and alcohol-fueled recklessness before they even made it to the dark corner. She started doing something that I couldn't believe. I won't describe it, but it was clear that she had crossed every line imaginable. Then they were gone, disappearing into the shadowy area where the cameras couldn't reach my heart. It was pounding in my chest every second, feeling like an eternity, as I stared at the empty frame. I knew exactly what was happening in that dark corner. I didn't mean to see it. When they finally reappeared on camera, it was even worse than I could have imagined. Linda stumbled back into view. Her dress was disheveled, her hair a mess. She was adjusting her clothes, trying to smooth out the wrinkles as if that could erase what had just happened. The two men who had been with her were straightening their shirts, one of them grinning like he'd just won some sick prize. Then I saw it, red lace panties sticking out of his pocket. Her panties. That was it. The confirmation I didn't want but couldn't deny. They'd done it, all three of them. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. Linda hadn't just betrayed me, she'd humiliated me in the worst possible way. I felt sick. My hands shook as I paused the footage, staring at the frozen image of her adjusting her dress. I was completely unaware that her life was about to change forever. I felt rage bubbling up inside me, burning hotter with every second. I wanted to destroy them all, Linda, her colleagues, everyone involved in this disgusting betrayal. I couldn't believe that the woman I loved, the woman I had shared my life with, had turned into someone I didn't even recognize at that moment. I was sitting in front of my laptop, staring at the damning footage, barely containing myself. My hands were shaking, my heart pounding in my chest, and every fiber of my being was on edge. I wanted to confront Linda and find those men and make them pay for what they had done. But deep down I knew that wouldn't solve anything. It would only make things messy. I took a deep breath and tried to think clearly. Maybe there was no need for revenge. Maybe the best move was to stay calm, focus on the bigger picture, and start preparing for the inevitable divorce. If Linda wanted to betray me like that, then she didn't deserve any part of my life. I could take everything away. The next day, I found a good lawyer who specialized in high-conflict divorces. I told him everything that had happened, including what I had seen on the video and the details of Linda's betrayal. I also explained how I needed to handle the footage in a way that wouldn't put Tommy at risk. The lawyer listened carefully and nodded as I spoke. He assured me that we could use the video strategically, without revealing. He also promised that once the documents were ready, we could move forward with the divorce. A week later, I got an unexpected call from Tommy. He said, "Hey, Josh," and I could hear the excitement in his voice. He wanted to thank me for the recommendation. That recommendation gave me the job, better pay, and better hours. I quit that nightclub for good. I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. "That's amazing, Tommy. I'm really happy for you. You deserve it. I couldn't have done it without you." While Linda was out of the office, I noticed her purse lying on the counter. I don't know what made me look, but something made me glance inside. I saw a folded piece of paper. My curiosity got the better of me, so I pulled it out. It was a doctor's report with test results. I quickly scanned the page, and my heart stopped. Linda had tested positive for a sexually transmitted disease. It wasn't life-threatening, but it was serious. It was enough to make my blood boil. She'd caught it from her disgusting affair, and worse, she'd hidden it from me. This wasn't just betrayal. This was negligence and recklessness. I snapped a photo of the report with my phone and carefully put the paper back where I found it. As I stood there, my mind raced with anger. I couldn't just sit back. This wasn't going to be some quiet, clean break. I needed to act decisively. That night, after Linda went to bed, I took her phone and looked through her work chats. It didn't take long to find what I was looking for. Pictures from the party of her, with the men I had seen on the footage. She was too careless to delete them. I noted down their names and started searching for more information. It wasn't long before I found out more. I found out where they lived. At first, I thought about driving over there and beating them up. Then I had a better idea. I decided to go after them in a way that would hit harder than any punch. I tracked down the wives of the men Linda had been with. I contacted them cautiously at first and arranged meetings. When we met, I explained everything that had happened at the party. I told them about the affair, the possible consequences, and the fact that their husbands might have exposed them to an STD. I showed them the screenshots and photos to back up my story. They were shocked, furious, and disbelieving. These women were just like I had been. I suggested that they contact my lawyer. I offered to help them take legal action against their husbands, or at the very least prepare themselves for the fallout was my little revenge. I wanted to hit those men where it hurt, by destroying their marriages, just as they had helped destroy mine. Without moving, I finally confronted Linda. I waited for her to come home from work. I sat calmly at the kitchen table, the divorce papers neatly stacked in front of me. When she walked in, I handed her the documents without a word. As soon as she walked in, I could tell something was wrong. I told her, "Disheveled, I know everything." "Linda, I saw everything. I watched the entire nightclub video from start to finish. I know about your doctor's visit. I know about the men you were with. I know everything." Her face went pale and her hands started to tremble as she fumbled with the papers. From the party tier, a bit of fun with those men. Her eyes widened, and she started to protest, but I cut her off. I said, "I know about your doctor's visit." I showed her the photo of the test results on my phone. I said, "You've been hiding this from me. I'm done." Linda's defenses crumbled. She tried to explain, saying it was a mistake. She didn't know what she was doing because she said it didn't mean anything because she was drunk. But I wasn't convinced. I'd seen and heard too many excuses. I slid the divorce papers across the table. "You're going to sign these and be a good girl about it, or I'll make sure everyone in your family and your friends knows exactly what kind of person you are. I'll show them the footage, the tests, everything." Linda's face twisted with rage, but she knew she had no power here. She was trapped and couldn't do anything about it. "You bastard," she spat, her voice shaking. I just stood up, feeling calmer than I had in weeks. "I signed the papers, Linda," I said, walking out of the kitchen. "This is over." With that, I left her standing there, furious and defeated. She knew her lies had finally caught up to her. A few hours after I handed her the divorce papers, Linda, she realized just how deep in trouble she was. She came to me, her eyes red from crying, her voice trembling as she begged me to reconsider. "Josh, please," she whispered. "We can fix this. I made a mistake. I'm sorry. I'll do anything to make it right. Please don't throw it all away." But I was firm. "It's over. I don't want to hear any more of your speeches. You made your choices and now you have to live with the consequences." She cried and pleaded. But nothing she said could undo the betrayal or erase the images burned into my mind. I told her again that she needed to face the reality of what she had done. I was done listening to excuses and empty apologies. It was time for her to pay for her actions when the divorce proceedings began. My lawyer handled everything with precision and made sure the video evidence was used discreetly. I didn't have to worry about it affecting Tommy, as he'd already moved on to a better job and the club was long gone. Linda didn't stand a chance in court, with the evidence stacked against her. The case went smoothly, but there was one complication. One of the men from the party, a guy named Dave, wasn't taking things well. Apparently, the fallout from his involvement with Linda had hit him hard. Dave showed up near my house one evening after the legal proceedings had already begun. I didn't see him at first, but he was waiting for me. He was desperate and angry. He confronted me, accusing me of ruining his life. I could see the rage in his eyes, but I just shook my head. I told him he'd ruined his own life. That's when he tried to take a swing at me. Maybe he thought he'd catch me off guard. Dave had no idea that I'd been into boxing for years. His punch barely grazed me, and before he could even react, I'd got him on the ground and knocked him out. It wasn't even a real fight. Just a desperate attempt by a man who couldn't face the consequences of his own choices. I didn't feel any satisfaction, just pity. That's the story, guys. The divorce went through successfully. I got full custody of my daughter. We divided the property and Linda got what she deserved. Now I'm free. I'm free from the lies, the betrayal, and the toxic mess that my life had become. A few weeks later, Tommy invited me to his birthday party. It was a small gathering with good people. There I met someone. A wonderful woman who, for the first time in a long while, made me feel like life could be good again. We clicked. As I stood there chatting with her, I suddenly realized that maybe, just maybe, everything was going to be all right. And that's how it all ended. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave your thoughts in the comments. Life has its ups and downs, but in the end, we all find our way. Thanks for sticking with me through this. Best wishes to you all, and I'll see you soon.